Hey guys, so today our DIY is going to be homemade perfumes. So I thought it would be good to start with kind of some information because everyone is on a different perfume journey. So here are some examples of some perfumes that I have that obviously I bought, and I wanted to kind of give you an idea of the type of different things you can see out there. So first up, we're gonna have the cologne. So this is an example of a cologne that I have. It's Joe Malone. It's a pretty unisex brand. You see clearly it says cologne there. So for colognes in general, they're gonna be a lighter scent. I find that you can mix these pretty easy. The only thing about colognes, which is gonna be good or bad depending upon what you're looking for, is they don't tend to last long. They last usually between 2 to 3 hours. And with colognes, you're gonna have a lower percentage of oil to alcohol. So in a cologne, typically you'll find somewhere between 2 to 4% oil, and then the rest of that'll be alcohol. So next we're moving up to your EDT, or Eau de Toilette. So this one is Pink Sugar by Alkalina. It's the Red Velvet. So with EDTs or Eau de Toilette, those are gonna last a little longer for you. You get usually about 4 to 7 hours out of a EDT. Really depends on the person, depends on how heavily you spray it. This, for example, Pink Sugar, all the versions of it, I can't spray a lot. One, because I'm not super into super sweet things. I usually don't wear this alone, but if I do wear it alone, it lasts for me way longer than 7 hours. I can smell it well past that, and I don't heavy spray this. So everything I'm saying, take with a grain of salt because it depends on a lot of different things. But EDTs usually have between 5 to 7% perfume oil. Okay, and the last that we're going to talk about today, but not the strongest on the market, is an EDP, or Eau de Parfum. This example that I have here, see if I can get it to, there you go, I think you can see it. So this is Jimmy Choo by Jimmy Choo, my hands down favorite perfume of all time. This is my, I always have to have it scent. Eau de Parfums have a higher, again, perfume oil concentration than the cologne or the Eau de Toilette. Usually an Eau de Parfum has anywhere between 10 to 20% perfume oil to alcohol, and they can last around 8 hours. Now Jimmy Choo on me, straight on the skin, not even heavy spraying, lasts well past 8 hours. And if I put it on my clothes as well, I can smell that the next day on my clothes before I wash them. Okay, so now let's get into notes. So you'll usually hear anytime someone's talking about how a perfume or a fragrance smells, you have your top notes, your mid or heart notes, and your base notes. So what in the world does that mean? And that's what we're gonna kind of go over. So here's some examples of your top notes. And top notes are kind of the first thing that hits your nose when you smell a fragrance. Kind of like that first sniff, what do you smell? Those are usually a little bit lighter. They're about 10 to 25% of the composition of all the oils that you use. And they're just kind of that first blast. They usually don't stay that long through, but without them, the fragrance would smell different. And some perfumes, depending upon kind of the how they're made, you'll smell that top note all the way through. So it's not that they're definitely necessary, even though you don't necessarily smell them the entirety of the time you're wearing the fragrance. So next up are your mid or heart notes. And your mid notes are gonna start kind of coming out as your top notes are dying down. So again, these are just some examples. And it's not to say that since I gave lavender as an example of a top note, you can't have lavender in your mid note. That's not the case. But the way a mid note works is your mid note kind of is actually the majority of the fragrance. It's going to come in before that top note fades out, but it's also going to really influence the base notes as they come in. Your mid notes are usually going to be between 40 to 80% of the entirety of your fragrance. So this is going to where, you know, the bread and butter is. That's kind of where most of the power of your fragrance comes. But just like, you know, with cooking and baking, all of these things do work together. Then last but definitely not least are your base notes. Your base notes are going to be between 10 to 25% of your mixture. And this is what your fragrance is going to predominantly smell like when it dries down. So in this example, we have sandalwood and vanilla. So if you have a fragrance that has what you would call as a woody base, it usually has some type of oud, which is agarwood, sandalwood, cedarwood. Amber is a good base, but a base is really gonna like just ground the fragrance out for you, and it also contributes to the longevity. So like perfumes, like Jimmy Choo, for example, is a heavy patchouli base. It's a heavy patchouli perfume anyway, but typically I have found when you have patchouli in a perfume, it lasts a lot longer. So something I suggest starting out is keep it simple. So you don't have to have, you know, more than 3 different things in order to really have a good fragrance going. So, okay, so now getting into actually, how do we make this stuff? So, like I said, you know, if we kept it simple and decided to go with a lavender, neroli, sandalwood mix, with lavender being our top note, neroli being our mid note, and sandalwood being our base note. Again, you have to play around with this. I've played around with this combination, so I know that it smells good to me. But again, everyone is different. There are people that don't like lavender, people that can't stand neroli, etc., etc. But I think when you're starting out, you want to keep it simple. And I think 3 fragrances, 3 essential oils are going to get you where you need to go. Then the next thing you want to have is a carrier oil. So for me, coconut oil, fractionated coconut oil, that's the coconut oil that stays liquid. I like coconut oil because it's good for your skin. You have a low allergic rate to coconut oil typically. Now there are some people who are allergic to coconut. If you're one of those people, don't use coconut oil. Use jojoba oil, which is a little more expensive, but great for your skin. You could use grapeseed oil. Grapeseed oil is a little thicker, so maybe like an apricot oil. So nothing heavy like extra virgin olive oil. You don't want to use a coconut oil that gets solid, you know, when in cooler temperatures. So, because again, essential oils are not made to go directly on the skin. So the other thing you're going to need are something to put your perfume in. So if you want to go the fragrance oil route, which is going to be the base of the perfume anyway, you could get yourself something like this, which is just a roller ball. They have them on Amazon. If you're going to make oils or anything to sell, always use gloves and always sanitize and sterilize your items before using them. And you can use a 99% isopropyl alcohol with your gloves on to kind of sterilize. If you're making it for yourself, obviously just use clean hands. I like using gloves just because the stuff gets everywhere. This is a travel decant that you can also get from Amazon. This is 10 mils, so about 0.33 ounces. It sprays, it's really nice. You can get like a 5-pack of these for around $10. You know, with Amazon, it depends on the day. Great if you want to make, you know, a small batch. Great to carry it with your purse. Then you have the atomizer, which also you can get this on Amazon. This is a 3.4 ounce, which is about 3.34 ounce, which is about 100 mils. Comes with the top sprayer. Also, you can get on Amazon glass. And again, even if you're making it for yourself, I always sanitize. I just think, I mean, why would I not take care of my skin? you're gonna need something to measure out everything in. And then I found that for me, this type of spout measuring cup is gonna be what's best, because then if you measure here, you pour into here, and then this spout easily can pour into any of these containers that you choose. So, and then the last thing you're gonna need for making perfume is an alcohol. So now that we've gone over kind of everything that you need, let's talk about, how to get going. So let's start with, say you just want to make a fragrance oil. You don't really want to mess around with alcohol or anything like that. You want something that's going to last a little longer, for your roller ball. So this roller ball is a 1 ounce roller ball. So all you'd have to do is decide. So we have these 3. So then you take 10 to 25% of one, and that's how much of the lavender you use. You take 1 times 40 to 80%, and you can decide of your neroli, and then that's how much for 1 ounce. And then you do, like I told you before, a base is 10 to 25%. So each one of these to 1 ounce, and then you'll probably need 2 of these, because if you do it for the 1 ounce, because remember I said you have to use a carrier oil. So if you have your 1 ounce total, you're gonna have 1 ounce total of these 3 things. Then I would say do equal parts carrier oil to be safe. I think if you do equal parts carrier oil, then it's gonna work for, I have very sensitive skin, and when I do equal parts, even of a stronger essential oil, it worked for me. Again, you're gonna have to play around with this, because there are gonna be some people who need more of a carrier oil. But if you measure out, break it down, your notes, your top, your middle, and your base, divide it, and then percentage by 1, and then add, you'll have that in your container, and then add 1 ounce of carrier oil, whatever carrier oil you choose. And then, so you'll end up with 2 ounces of fluid in here. Pour it in here, pour it into your container, and then you're gonna have 2 ounces of fluid in here, which would fill up 2 of these. And that'd be it. That's how you make your fragrance oil. Okay, now to actually make perfume. To make perfume, you're gonna need some type of alcohol. So I use Everclear. I'm over 21, so I can buy Everclear, and I buy the 190 proof version, because that's 95% alcohol by volume. You want a high concentration of alcohol in order to basically get the oil to actually mix. Now, there are perfume alcohols that have no actual age limit to them, because they're denatured, so you couldn't drink them, which they're available on Amazon. They don't have a scent. Everclear does not have a scent, but again, I'm old enough to buy alcohol, so, and I have found that for me, it's easier to get this. I can get a larger amount for cheaper, but that doesn't mean that you have to use that. You can order a perfumer's alcohol. There are perfumer stores all over the internet and Amazon. And then there's also, so there's ways to get around having to use the actual grain alcohol. Like I said, I like Everclear because it's easily accessible for me, and I found that with the 95 proof, I tend to not have too much of an issue when it comes to mixing of my essential oils. So when you're thinking about perfume, just like we talked about with the fragrance oil, you want that same thing. So you have, I'm gonna move these out of the way. So for a perfume, when you're thinking about, let me bring this one back. So we have a 3.4 ounce container here. When you're making perfume, Again, when you go back to what we talked about earlier, you want to think about how strong you want your perfume to be. So remember, your lowest one, your cologne, that's going to be 2 to 4% oil, to the rest alcohol. If you get into your eau de toilette, that's going to be 5 to 15%, and then of oil to alcohol. And then if you get into your EDPs, that's going to be 10 to 20% oil to alcohol. So you always want to be thinking about how much you're trying to make, and then the size of the container or containers that you have. Now for me, again, I have a business. I also, again, just really like making things. So I tend to have a few of these around all the time, a few of these around all the time. So I can worry less about making it exactly to fit this one container, and because I usually will have another container if I make too much. Okay, so now if we're thinking about this, so again, this is 3.4 ounces. Because I'm making it at home, because I like a stronger perfume, I actually, if I had a 3.4 ounce bottle, I would do 1.4 ounces of my oil mixture and then fill the rest with my alcohol. And so that would give me a higher than 40%, but I have found that I really like how that smells when I've made my own. Okay, so here I have my oil mixed together that I want to use. So all it is to do now is to add my Everclear to the liquid. So the other reason that like I said, I use Everclear because it doesn't have a scent. So you want to stay away from rubbing alcohol, because although, yeah, you can buy a 99% isopropyl alcohol, which I use it to sterilize things that I'm, my containers and things like that I'm going to use when I'm making product. But you don't want to just have that mixed in there, and because you're going to spray this on you. The other reason is because even the ones that say they don't have a scent, they have a scent. Everclear really doesn't smell like anything. So you're going to, so you have your top, middle, and base note mixture in the container for measuring. And now I'm just going to pour my Everclear up until about the a little lower than the 3.5 marker for this container. Now, what you see is, because that amount of alcohol, the oil pretty much mixes itself. So you have a little bit going on in there, and as it sits, it really will pretty much mix itself. I love using like little wooden spoon sticks. I get these from a dollar store. I get like 200 for, well, it's not $1 anymore. It used to be $1, but I think it's like $1.25. Still well worth it. But see, as you kind of stir it together, and this is just for me. So again, and my hands are clean, and I'm not gonna sell this. This is for me. But you see that the oil really didn't have those little bubbles. It's not gonna separate, and that's because you have that such a high concentration of alcohol. I one time accidentally bought the other Everclear that was 70%, and tried to make a perfume. I had a lighter sandalwood mixture, super light, worked perfectly fine. It looked like this, clear and everything. But then I tried it with one that had heavier oils, and it didn't mix. Now, the perfume is still usable, but what happens is now when I use that one that I mixed, I have to shake it up before I spray it in order to distribute the oil and the alcohol, just because I use such a low concentration. Where this one, as you see, I can just spray this out of the bottle. Okay, so the last thing really for me to do is to transfer this into here, and then put it in my perfume bottle, throw a label on it, and I'm good to go. Also, one last thing I'll say is I tend to let my perfume sit for about 30 days before I use it. I've just found that letting it sit, all of the oils mix together, any kind of alcohol-y smell that may be there, it tends to be gone. And I think just leaving it to sit for 30 days after I've made it just has really made a difference in and just kind of how my fragrance tends to last and smell when I use it. So thanks so much, guys, for hanging out with me on our how to make your perfumes at home. It's really, playing around. I think making perfume is like cooking and baking at the same time. I do both. Baking, you really want to make sure you have your percentages down and your measurements down, but then that feel of like the cooking of like what smells good together. And don't be afraid to try things that may not seem like they go well. So for example, that lavender neroli sandalwood, like just thinking about it, that wouldn't have been something I thought would smell good, but I really, really do enjoy how that smells. So thanks again. Hope this helps, and I'll see you at our next DIY.